Hey guys, it's Sandro here, and today we've got a highly requested video which is the review and my personal opinions on the new Rupes HLR75 Cordless Mini Polisher. I first got my hands on this new Rupes polisher a few months ago, but wanted to wait until I had a little more hours and worked on a few more cars before making this review. Now, whether you love or hate its looks, there's no doubting it's different, unique, and there's no way you'll mistake it for any other polisher. So Rupes certainly deserves some points here, designing a polisher that at least aesthetically is different to other polishers on the market. It measures at about 270 millimeters in length with the battery in, which is certainly more compact than most dedicated 3-inch cordless polishers. But with a height of about 150 millimeters, it's much taller than most other polishers in this category. Weight-wise, it comes in under 1100 grams without the battery and about 1450 grams with the battery in. So for this segment of the market, it's certainly a far lighter polisher than most of its rivals. I'll get more into the polishing ergonomics of it all in a bit, but for me, it really feels nice in the hands, has a nice strong Velcro backing plate, a clearly viewable and perfectly positioned large speed dial that propels the polisher from 3000 to 5500 OPM, which for me is a fantastic and usable speed range throughout. One thing I do think Rupes did quite exceptionally, and may in fact be a class leader here, is the battery performance. Now I know it's not a full-size polisher and as such won't use as much juice. But after using this polisher on several cars and even pushing it a little harder to really test the battery life under strain, I never came close to running out of power before the spare battery was fully charged. The battery charging times compared to most comparative polishers just seems clearly better, even using lighter batteries, which is impressive. The trigger placed at the top of the polisher is easily activated with the lightest of pressure, and the machine motion is turned on and off simply by pressing down and then releasing that plate with no other on or off switches apart from setting the speed dial to 0. I'll talk more about the trigger in a bit, but for now, let's discuss the really important part of this new mini cordless polisher, which is how it actually performs during paint correction. It's all good and important to talk about specs, as they certainly can influence how a machine polisher performs. But the real test is always what happens when the polisher pad and compound meets the paint in the real world. Let's start with power and torque. First up, this little polisher certainly hasn't been starved of any raw performance power. I think it has at least, if not more torque than any other dedicated mini DA polisher, corded or not. During my testing, I grabbed a number of corded and cordless polishers to compare the rotation and stall around body lines, curves and crevices, and this new cordless polisher was at the very least as good, if not noticeably more torquey, powering through those DA stall prone areas quite impressively. It's just a little beast in that respect. Smoothness wise, it's a Rupes through and through, having that exceptional balance and seamless rotation. Now when you kick it up to top speed, it can start to vibrate more than your typical Rupes machine. But that's just a trade-off of having a little more speed and power than you'd expect in a mini polisher. But in most cases, you really don't need to use it at top speed, but it's still nice to have that option. It's also important to note that it's not a great polisher to lay down on its back due to its trigger design, but it does sit perfectly on the edge of most detailing trolleys. Now something that's very unique for a 3-inch polisher is the potential to use it single-handedly. Sometimes on areas like tall vehicle roofs where you need one hand to balance yourself, it can be really helpful to be able to polish certain areas with your other hand. The design of this polisher having that 50-50 weight split just behind the polisher's head actually allows you to work reasonably well with just one hand over the head trigger, also allowing you to add pressure, adjust the dial and turn the machine on and off single-handedly, which I do believe is a first in this category of polisher. A few more things that need mentioning as a consequence of that weird polisher design are some more benefits it has up its sleeve. One thing about cordless polishers that is a little frustrating is that large bulky battery at the end. And if you're not careful, it can make contact with the car panel and also restrict certain positioning and movements throughout paint correction. But the new cordless Rupes has the battery about an inch higher than the backing plate and also angled up and away from the car paint, where it pretty much solves that issue, allowing for less potential accidents and far more unrestricted movement. The other benefit of this design is that in some areas where most other polisher arms and batteries can obstruct your line of view, this new design seems to always give you a great line of sight, so you don't need to get into weird positions to see the pad moving on the paint. One thing I will say for beginners is that this tall, oddly designed machine is harder to control than your more standard, flat and streamlined polisher. And even for professionals, it can take a minute to get used to it. But the payoff of having better vision, more maneuverability, less potential to whack the battery into a panel, and even use this polisher single-handedly is well worth spending a little more time to master it. So guys, if you haven't picked up on it yet, let me just say that it's been a while since a new car polisher has impressed me this much, and although it took me a few months to really understand all the hidden benefits of this little new polisher, it was well worth taking the time to discover all it has to offer. Now, nothing is ever perfect, and unfortunately this new cordless HLR75 does have one major flaw. I touched on the trigger before during the specs, but this is the Achilles heel on what is otherwise just an amazing new mini polisher. The issue in a nutshell is the hair trigger sensitivity of the polisher's trigger with no safeguard or lock latch prevention. What happens here is that the polisher will start spinning by accident at the worst possible time, meaning you've just added compound to your pad and accidentally bumped the trigger to cover yourself and the car with compound residue flying everywhere. The first time this happened, I was mad at myself with the compound residue all over my clothes, mouth, eyes, and half the car. The second and third time it happened, I was still blaming myself, thinking, come on you idiot, stop, concentrate. But after that point, with the realization that the only way to prevent it is to dial the speed to 0 immediately after each polishing set and then dial it back only after you're ready to start polishing, it's just simply unreasonable, and because you don't need to do this with any of your other polishers, it's just impossible to avoid that happening and also working at a good fast pace. In other words, it's a flaw, and what's more troubling is that I knew this after just half a day of using the machine. So I don't know how Rupes tested this machine in the field without someone bringing this issue to light. Now I understand what Rupes was going for here, as their Nano iBread polisher has the same style trigger. But here's the thing, the Nano iBread has a half-second delay, so bumping the trigger doesn't cause it to immediately fire up. And because of its different design, weight and form factor, it's just never suffered from this same issue. And if you take a look at the Rupes air-driven polishers like the TA50 and the pneumatic 3-inch Mini, they have a very simple but very effective one-handed operated trigger lock latch. In my opinion, this simple latch wouldn't negatively affect the user experience of this new polisher, but it would solve this incredibly frustrating issue. To wrap up this video, I'm just so impressed at what Rupes has managed to produce here in what I honestly believe is an exceptional and purposeful innovative design and execution. This isn't just another car polisher, it's a template for what the new standard of cordless car polishers should be, and that's really important to understand. Rupes just hasn't pulled the plug out and slapped the battery on. They've thought about an actual cordless redesign, and I think they're the first to do so. The way the machine arm and battery is positioned and angled up away from the car, and the way the balance of the machine has been distributed with a battery, the way you can turn it on, run, and even adjust it with a single hand, and also importantly that it's as powerful, smooth, light, and easy to live with as any corded machine on the market. As someone who spent a large part of their life on car machine polishers, I appreciate what this new Rupes polisher represents and has achieved. Yes, it has a flaw, a really annoying one, but it seems like such an easy fix that Rupes would just be crazy not to address it quickly. I think I'll leave it there, guys, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to say thanks and help support future content, you can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ccad, in which I'll have a link to in the description box, or you can now hit the thanks button below the video, and thank you everyone for the support so far. As always, I really hope you guys enjoyed and found this video helpful. Please share it with others, give it a like and comment below to show your support for this content, and I'll see you guys soon.